Hi, and welcome to another edition of Journey to Awakening podcast. I'm your host, Ron Ario, author of Journey to Awakening and the Quantum Performance Coach. And I'm very happy to introduce a wonderful woman today named Jamie Liu. And Jamie, I'm going to take a moment and explain a little bit about your bio and your background, and then we'll just jump right into it, okay? So Jamie's a frequency healer and spiritual teacher with 8+ years professional practice. Jamie Liu was gifted in light language, telepathic communication, deep inner psychology, and the refined transmission of divine healing. She created a method of healing called, frequency healing that blends voice, presence, sound, and energy work to induce transformation and balance on every level of the mind, body, and spirit. She's world-renowned for working with difficult illnesses and mental tensions. After healing herself from a heart condition and Hashimoto's disease at 24, she transitioned from a successful career in technology after experiencing multiple deaths that led to world travel, years alone, and a spiritual awakening event. She is a lecturer at the Globe Institute of Sound and Consciousness, the first college to offer a degree to sound healing students in the United States. She personally trains and coaches clients online at the Love Rising Academy in the facilitation of frequency healing. The Academy has activated hundreds of people on their individual paths of light, love, and liberated awareness. She holds work, her life's work holds the intention of liberation for humanity. So, Jamie, thank you for accepting my offer so that I can feature you on my podcast. Okay. And we've met in person before, but I have been following you. And so I've been really impressed with your gentle nature, how you communicate spiritual truths. And so you really stood out for me in that way. And one question I have that I'd really like to jump in on is how you healed yourself at 24. And actually, maybe before you get to that, can you take us back just a little bit and let us know, were there any synchronicities along the way that led you up to that? Because your processes of awakening, I think, is incredibly pertinent right now, as many people across the planet are going to be encountering degrees of awakening without even realizing it, and maybe think they've got illnesses or they're going nuts or whatever. And the more people can hear stories like yours, I think the more they can start to get in tune with maybe their own inner processes. You know what I mean?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Ron, for that beautiful intention and welcoming me into this very important conversation, which is about spiritual awakening and not necessarily about you going crazy and, having some kind of, disease or life change or crisis happening that, is unexplainable. There are answers. There are absolute answers out there. So yes, thank you so much. I first of all really appreciate your invitation and for this opportunity to speak, Ron.
Awesome.
Okay, so my story, I'll give you the short version. So I was born in the Philippines. I'm a mixed baby, and I was raised in the States in Texas. And so I was given a pretty normal American suburban life, okay? Nothing really spiritual or deep about my life growing up in Texas, all right? Change didn't start happening for me until I started having a beautiful, successful life and career in San Francisco. I worked in Silicon Valley. I was at the top of my career as a creative director. I worked in marketing. I worked on websites and apps. I worked with startups. I made companies look very good and provided intuitive user interfaces. It's a whole thing. Okay, that was my career. It was my life. And I worked pretty much like every other tech person there, crazy amounts of hours. Okay, crazy. I mean, there were days sometimes where I would only get like 2 hours of sleep and then I'd be back on the computer, you know. And that's just kind of the lifestyle in the tech industry. It became my normal, and I didn't question it. I was highly successful, very young, you know, had my own penthouse apartment in San Francisco, my own hybrid car. You know, I had great friends, supportive boyfriend. My parents were proud of me. You know, like there was nothing wrong with my life on the surface, but something was incredibly off because I could feel in my soul that something was incredibly off. And not only could I feel it in my soul, my body was manifesting disease after disease after disease that my doctors could not explain. Okay, so the first condition that that I was diagnosed with was a really rare heart condition. And I had 4 doctors, 4 cardiologists helping me on this case. And they each had different diagnoses. Okay. So we couldn't even agree on what this thing actually was.
How was the condition manifesting? How did you become aware that something was wrong? I mean, what physical symptoms were you having that said, I have an issue?
Sure. Shortness of breath, really extreme palpitations, the kind that would like just knock you off your feet, you know. It would prevent me from working. It was really extreme. And a lot of chest pain, severe chest pain. So, you know, for me to be experiencing that at such a young age was really alarming. And then to hear all these doctors say, we don't know what it is, sorry, we can't give you an answer, was incredibly discouraging, right? And so I know how that feels, you know, when it seems like no one can help you. And then on top of that, these experts were saying, well, we're going to have to treat it somehow. So here's beta blockers, and you're going to have to be on this for the rest of your life. And you're going to have open heart surgery if it doesn't get any better, probably at the age of 40. And I'm going, whoa, reality check. This is my life. You know, this is my life. What am I doing with my life? And why aren't I healthy? Why aren't I really, truly happy deep down inside? You know, what is going on here? And I realized for the first time that I'm 100% responsible for my life and my health. And yes, at the time, there was so much uncertainty, so much of, well, we don't even know what this is. We don't know what's really going on. All I know is I have to take these medications. All I know is that my family is freaking out because, you know, we have all these unanswered questions. And deep down inside, my body is telling me, you know, something radical. And this is what I had to keep a secret, you know.
And you were really lucky at an early age to confront those questions, though. I mean, that's crazy to be that young and start to take responsibility for yourself, you know? Really cool. I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for this, I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
Because I have seen, especially with clients and others that I've observed, you know, that kind of realization can happen much further along in life for whatever reason. But yeah, I was very grateful to have a catastrophic health event happen and wake me up to a greater sense of responsibility. But not only that, I woke up to my intuitive voice. And this was the thing I had to keep a secret, okay? I felt like I couldn't tell the doctors, I couldn't tell my family, I couldn't tell my boyfriend, I couldn't tell anyone within my trusted inner circle that I've got this intuition that's speaking to me now, and it's saying that my body can heal itself, okay? I mean, even to me, to my own ego, that was really hard to accept. But when you've got an intuitive voice that's speaking loud and clear like that, you know, as if it's trying to save your life, and that's exactly what was happening for me, I listened to that voice, and that voice said, your body can heal itself. Like, hang in there. You know, there is a solution. There is another way. And so I said, all right, if there's another way, then I've got to stop right now. I've got to stop believing in what the authorities are telling me. I've got to stop believing in the fear that my family is in and they're projecting onto me. I've got to stop this nonsense because it is not helping me progress into the healing that I know exists. So the next part of that story, and by the way, it wasn't just, the heart really progressed quickly into thyroid issues. My neck was literally bulging with a enlarged thyroid gland. I had unexplainable gut issues. The doctor said, you got to stop eating meat like right now. And that's hard for a Texan, okay? You don't tell a Texan girl to stop eating meat. Like I was raised on meat and potatoes my whole life. So all of a sudden I had to stop eating meat and be on this plant-based diet. I was literally like forced. My body forced me into a spiritual awakening, Ron. And it was that plant-based diet, a whole new outlook on life, more of an in-look, looking in and listening to that voice of intuition that says you can do this, and it's going to be alternative, it's going to be spiritual, it's going to be something like you've never experienced before. So you've got to get your head out of the normal, the status quo medicine, territory of medicine, and go seek truth. Go seek the truth within yourself. Seek thyself. Literally, it was like this. These kinds of realizations were just coming alive within me at the year of 2012. And that's when my life radically changed. I started meditating. And I love how formal meditation came to my life. I've always meditated throughout my life, and I've never known it was a thing, just sitting in solitude and focusing quietly. I've always done that since a child. But when I moved to San Francisco, I started getting in touch with these beautiful friends and people who are practicing Vipassana meditation. And I didn't know what that was, but I would have these beautiful brunches at my flat every weekend and have people over. I was so excited to meet new people, and these new people would come in and be like, oh my God, Jamie, you have such an amazing place. It's huge. You can't find huge places like this in San Francisco anymore. And we're a group of 40 meditators, and we need space. We need like a big space to meditate. Could you host us? Would you be interested in that? And in exchange, we'll teach you this Vipassana meditation. And I was like, okay, cool. So that's how it came into my life. And I would call that a synchronicity, because I was a very open and generous person. I loved sharing in my success. I loved sharing in the little time that I did have, because the rest of my time would go towards working. So the little time that I did have was very valuable to me, and I just wanted to share it with my community. And through that open door, that's the heart, right? The heart is open.
Absolutely.
These opportunities come in.
I want to ask you, multiple deaths. Can you elaborate on that, please? Okay.
So after doing rounds and rounds of silent sitting, that's Vipassana meditation. You're just sitting in silence, you're meditating with your own thoughts. This really started to activate more of these realizations. And so knowing that my body could heal itself, knowing that the solution I was looking for was outside the norm, knowing that it had to be, like literally my intuition said it has to be spiritual and it has to be alternative. I said, okay, then we're leaving the States. We're leaving the States in order to find this answer. So I left the country. I moved to a place called Bali, not knowing what it was.
That's a secret. I lived in Bali for 10 months, and it's interesting how so many of us go there, but go ahead. I'm sorry. Okay.
It is interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's one of those places. So I didn't know anything about Bali. I didn't read Eat, Pray, Love. I had no idea it was like this yoga spiritual hub in the world. Okay. I had no idea it had healers. It was just a place that I thought would be a great vacation for me. Okay. So I go there thinking I'm going to stay there for 2 weeks. I'm going to vacay. I'm going to clear my head. And as soon as I show up, you know, it's like the path opens up, and I'm there as a student, eager to learn. And when the student is ready, the teacher shows up, right? So right away, day one, I get connected to a teacher, and she's a quantum physicist who understands a lot about how to be in command of your energy, right? Your personal energy, and in order to heal yourself. So I worked with teachers like this very closely. Many teachers, incredible masters who helped me unlock certain doorways inside my own psyche, unlock energy pathways within my body, help me reclaim a lot of my own sovereignty and life force. And before you knew it, I experienced an instant healing of my heart. My heart was the first thing to heal itself. So my body was right. You know, the body said, your body can heal itself. It just takes the right conditions, you know, and I actually got to trust it. And as soon as I did, boom, I experienced it.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And so, you know, this process of trusting and learning from my teachers, you know, being open-minded to receive in their keys really accelerated my own spiritual growth and awakening. But when we awaken, and this is exactly what happened to me after all the beautiful clearing, the awakening started to happen so quickly that I began to meet, I began to experience these deaths, right? This is what you're bringing up now. And what these deaths are, it's the death of the mind, you know, the death of my identity as Jamie Lou and her resume and all the great things she's done and has accomplished, you know, boom, just dissolve. The death of my control, you know, trying to control life instead of surrender deeply to it and trusting in its wisdom to guide me. Deaths that were excruciating and painful, and not just emotional, but physical. Okay, like I remember experiencing dengue fever, and although the doctors would say it's caused from a mosquito bite, you know, and this happens to your whole system. What I was experiencing was something much more profound and deeper than an infection coming from a mosquito bite. Okay, I was experiencing fevers and chills and these excruciating pains that would feel like your spine is just being like, you know, being ripped apart. And through that process of surrendering to that pain, I was releasing so much fear, so much stored fear and trauma and
And this was in Bali.
This was in Bali, yeah,
Okay.
my time in Bali. I'm just remembering this particular scenario because you brought up the deaths, and this is one of those episodes of dying for me. It was like, sure, you could call it dengue fever, but my experience of it was like death, and I came out a totally different person after experiencing that, because I deeply surrendered to it, and that was my spiritual guidance was, you know, that this isn't just dengue fever. This is something for you to. This is an initiation. This is something for you to surrender to the pain, and not try to fix it. Okay. And on the outside, yeah.
I think Bali does that to people. When I was there for 10 months, physically, I wasn't great for those 10 months. I thought I had dengue fever at one time too, where literally water is coming down my face, you know, like 103-degree temperatures. And it was almost like I thought it was going to be a place where I was going to retreat, because it's a portal. It's a vortex, yes. Right? I mean, isn't it? I think it's a chakra, an earth chakra, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. But it was crazy times there for sure. Let me ask you, when you went to your awakening, and I'm asking you this question for the benefit of those that are listening, because I remember when I went through my awakening, my major awakening, I was lucid. Luckily, I had a safe place to live because I had taken a year off, and I had a safe place to live in Long Beach, next to the next to the beach. I rented a room, and I was just going to do nothing. I said, I'm going to only do what I want to do for the next year. Okay. Well, an awakening came on during that process where I was out of my mind. I mean, I was getting, the matrix was breaking down. At the same time, I'm getting divine downloads, and they were clashing. And it was a mess. And there was times when I thought, I'm out of my mind. And I'm completely out of my mind. But there was something inside that said, something special's happening. Yes. Something special's happening. At least I had that awareness that something special was happening. Otherwise, who knew what was going to happen to me? You know what I mean? Because I can tell you stories later. I don't want to waste anybody's time now, where it's just like, take me away. Take me away. I mean, to where I'm in false realities. Did you experience that as well?
I totally understand. Yeah. These extreme volatile moments during a spiritual awakening process, right? Where it could seem like you are going batshit crazy, you know? And it is that process, a needed process of releasing the domination of the mind, right? That's been in control of everything, and actually surrendering to a higher intelligence, the wisdom of the heart. It's a reorientation that needs to happen. And that's huge. And it's different for every single person. Okay. Yeah. It's very different. Like I know very good friends who had to die. They had to leave the earth plane, you know, and then in order to finally liberate the mind. And then they come back because they're choosing to come back. And it's usually because Source Creator is saying, hey, you know, your job's not done. Didn't actually, you know, fulfill your mission there yet. And so we kind of have to send you back if you're okay with that. And usually there's a little exchange that happens because they're like, I don't know if I want to go back. I thought that was it.
What leads me to another question for you is, when did you realize you had a spiritual contract to fulfill? When did that become like, I'm assuming it had become a driving force, because it has for me. When I realized, wait a minute, I'm here for a reason. There's something I need to fulfill, and I'm not going to feel good about this whole life experience unless I am fully committed to that process. When did that happen for you?
Okay, it happened, and you know, for me, Ron, it was a very gentle process. Okay, although there were extreme events, but I had an awareness just like you did, and we usually tend to have some kind of awareness that says it's going to be okay, right? Stick it out, hang in there, keep surrendering. This is what is supposed to happen. It's all perfect, right? And what we need to do as those who are awakening, you know, the message here is that you've got to listen to that and trust it, right? So important, because the moment you don't, that's when we suffer. That's when you really, truly suffer.
I remember after the awakening, because for a moment you feel enlightened, but awakening is not enlightened by any stretch of the imagination. Awakening is just becoming aware. Enlightenment is a whole nother process. But I remember asking, oh my God, how much more do I need to endure? How much more do I need to endure? And I know you said you spent a lot of time alone. So did I. I spent 3 years, like 99.5% of the time alone. And so did you have those moments too? You know what I mean? Like, you know, and it was just like, I had to keep going in and in and in. And it was like, how much more, you know? Crazy. And it was challenging, you know? Did you experience that as well?
Yes. In my own way, a constant returning, you know, being called to go within whenever there was a challenge. And for me, it was always, the challenge was always reflected in my relationships. Okay. So relationship with other was always my mirror in that regard. And that's where I would find a lot of my own tensions and triggers. Okay. So I learned very quickly that with those who are awakening to the wholeness of spirit, to the truth of spirit, and they're here to embody that, and awaken to their fullest potential, then we are constantly meeting our resistance to that spirit. Okay. We're meeting the resistance to the light within us. And so that disempowerment was the big thing for me, Ron. Constantly meeting this place inside myself where I felt so disempowered, so helpless, so powerless because of what I believed. I was taught that I was just that I'm not worth anything. I was taught from a very young age, and from my ancestry, from the DNA that is carried, it's gone beyond me, the stuff that I've inherited, that teaches my own DNA that we're not infinite powerful creators, that we're limited. And so we have to abide by the rules, and we have to think in certain ways in order to be accepted and loved. And this is all just bullshit. And I didn't learn that. Okay. I didn't learn that and wake up to that until I said, enough is enough. I'm done with suffering. I am done with collapsing time and time again in my relationships. I'm done with feeling afraid and abused, attacked for what I truly believe in and what my values are deep down inside. I was sick and tired of all this tension and suffering. And when I finally said, I've had enough of the suffering. I want to choose grace. I want to choose the peace of my heart, and I want to walk that path. That is when I woke up to the empowerment I was actually looking for. Okay. That's when I knew my purpose here on earth. And it became very clear at that
Beautiful. Point. I had a similar type moment where when I really realized, like when I went through the awakening and I remember reading Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, back in the early 2000s. And I was like, man, this is a great book. But how do I apply it to my life? I'm reading this stuff. I'm like, I can't apply this to my life because before the awakening, I'm typically thinking about the past and worried about the future. The eternal present moment is just elusive because my mind is so active, right? So when I went through my awakening, the pain became so severe. The mental, physical, and emotional pain I was going through, like a vice coming in tighter, 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 tighter. And then boom, it was a gift. It was like the present moment was there. I couldn't escape. There was no diversions I could do. It was isolated. And then that moment I saw, wow, this moment is pregnant. This moment is pregnant. And I get to choose how my next moment is going to be experienced. And it was like, oh my God. And then everything came, like old habits and habitual thinking patterns started coming in. And I'm like, no, because I can feel it manifesting. I can feel it. I can feel the pain of that manifesting. And so so life became like a string of pearls for me where I said, how I respond to life in every moment is going to determine my life experience. So if I can string these pearls along, eventually I'm going to look back and I'm going to go, I have a beautiful life. Yes. Because I took control of that. But that was the gift of that present moment that I finally understood. Now, that doesn't mean I became an expert. You know what I mean? Because we're constantly challenged with the matrix and everything else. But that's kind of like my mantra even today, is how do I respond is going to determine my life experience. And I want a beautiful life. So why would I not choose to respond in a beautiful way? Really, really simple, but really profound. So I got a question for you. The liberation gene. Can you expand on that, please? Jamie, we generally try to keep this to an hour. There's so much I would love to talk to you about, but we're going to get everything in. We're going to get it. And I know there's some things we want to talk about that you've let me know. One of them's this. And but anyway, can you explain the liberation gene, please?
Sure. So it's very much, it's perfect to jump into this because as it relates to someone's spiritual awakening and all the challenges that seem to arise, right? When you're called to your greater purpose and you're in the journey of awakening to that and learning how to surrender to that can be monumental. Okay, it can really take you to the edge. And you shared kind of the reasons why it could be so edgy. It's because we're up against a lot. Okay, where we've been born into a world and a society that has normalized suffering, and that means, you know, we're experiencing as a human race the production, the generation of these fields of consciousness. That means these thought bubbles, okay, that come from us, that come from our own thoughts, that come from our emotions, that come from our choice, what it is, how we respond, just like you said, how we're choosing to respond and show up in life. That is what's creating these invisible fields of thought, okay? And these invisible fields of thought are extremely impactful and carry the power to influence others, all right? So if you get enough people together to conclude and believe in a certain thought, okay, like Trump is an evil, evil man. If you get a bunch of people to really believe in that, and based on what they're seeing on the TV, they start to emote these feelings of fear, of injustice, of offense, you know, of like, how could he, anger, maybe even envy. You know, if you put all of that intense energy, because that's energy, and you put that into the belief that he is this awful man who's trying to, you know, take down America as like this dictator, then more people actually start to get attracted to that and start believing in it too. And then you're supporting, at that point, probable manifestation. And that's where things get really, really crazy. Okay, that's where trouble starts. So the Nazis knew this. They use that to their advantage, right?
Would you refer that to also a timeline? Could that be equivalent
Yes.
to a timeline? Okay.
If you want
Yeah.
to, from the multidimensional perspective, absolutely. We are creating the timelines. We are
Yes.
creating endless possibilities all the freaking time, because we're God incarnate. We're creator incarnate, and we
Yes.
create this reality, this world that we are co-experiencing together. We're co-creating it together. So those of us who are awakening, all right, this is where it gets different. Those of us who are awakening to the truth within us, okay, not the truth outside. So we're not looking outside of us anymore. The true seeker is seeking from within, okay? They want to know the truth from within. They want to feel and experience the God spark within, the source connection within themselves, and to hear that guidance, you know, to hear that everything's going to be okay. You know, surrender, trust, right? Allow, love, peace, harmony. You know, this is what we deeply fall in love with in the awakening process. And it's because of meeting those tensions, right? You get to see exactly through in your blind spots, right? The blind spots we've been carrying all our lives, exactly where we've been resisting the light and the call to that light. So in the spiritual awakening process, you know, I've watched people like get to the very edge, and then they think they've arrived to the freedom, to the happiness, to the love that they want to experience, but then they're still suffering, you know, or they're still stuck. They're still not manifesting the life that they want to experience. And that's what I call the point where you're almost there. You're almost there. And we just need a breakthrough. It's like that last breakthrough point where you can arrive to the other side where you're liberated, because a spiritual awakening is trying to get you to a place of liberation. Full-scale liberation. It's a liberation from consciousness, okay? A liberation that involves going beyond our beliefs. I often say that a belief is you being the lie. It's a be lie. It's in the word, it's belief. And we're not being the lie anymore. We're waking up to the lie and moving beyond it.
Which leads me to, I'm sorry, go ahead. You finish and I'll hold off this question.
Okay. Yeah, I feel it. I feel you got a good question there. So what liberation is to actually step beyond the belief. And a lot of people are promoting the power of beliefs. And this is really good awareness, to actually work with our beliefs, and we could change our beliefs into positive beliefs. That's cool. But where I take people is we actually go beyond it. We go beyond it so we can enter higher dimensional states of awareness where we're not beholden to mental constructs anymore. The mental construct of belief and of judgment and thought. There's actually a place that's beyond that. That's more deeper in the heart. It's more love consciousness. It's just pure geometry, light, sound. It's those words can't describe. I get hung up here, I'm like, how do I describe this realm? But you can't, because words don't even exist in that realm. But this is how powerful human beings are. We're multidimensional beings. And once you wake up to that, you get to access higher states of connection here, okay? New frameworks that allow us to walk more freely, okay, down here on Earth. And that means when you're free, you can manifest whatever the hell you want, okay, and whatever you need, if it's in alignment with your divinity, okay? So it's essentially moving away from our dependencies and our attachments, from thought. Okay, this thought that has agenda, it has negative emotion attachments, even positive emotion attachments, and really truly moving away and surrendering into this place of freedom. And it's just you and source. It's just you and source.
Because
co-creating.
Thought is creating a structure, whether it's negative or positive, is creating a structure that is separate than source, that it's a part of this dimension.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you say the word beliefs, because as we try to maybe enlighten other people, like maybe even the people that attacked you or this or that or whatever that we were talking about earlier, you see so many people, I don't believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I never heard be lie. Okay. But just the word belief is saying that you don't know, because beliefs are so temporary. And beliefs can change tomorrow based on new information or new knowledge. And I was interviewing a gentleman named Alan Shelton. He says, knowledge is like rearranging the chairs on the Titanic. And I thought that was just beautiful. You know what I mean? It's just, that's all it is. But then there's a knowing. And you get into that knowing, you can't explain where the knowing comes from, but like when you go through an awakening and all of a sudden you see all the pieces are fitting together. And when you talk to another person that is aware and awake, they know that you know already. You don't have to talk about beliefs. Well, do you believe this or do you believe this? Because you know that if you're aware of this, you're certainly aware of this, because the puzzle pieces fit together.
Yes.
And, just trying to, and I have some friends that I love so much, I care about so much. And there's only one in particular. I'm so attached to trying to help him get over the hump. You know what I mean? And then he's got this beliefs, and it's like, and I have to let go, and I have to let the process unfold, just like I had to go through. Which leads me to another word, compassion, which we're not going to talk about right now, okay? It's really important, but there's other stuff I want to talk to you about. One is, when did you know you weren't from this planet? When did you know you were a starseed? Okay, expand on your awareness of what a starseed is, because that's going to be very alien to people. It's so alien to people, and no pun intended. Okay. but you know what? I'm not from here. I know I'm not from here. You know, you want to explain starseed and the importance of understanding what a starseed is for you, please.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So many who are taking up the call to further themselves and awaken to the fullness of their light, right? To the fullness of spirit and their own spiritual connection are starseed. And some aren't, but what the starseed DNA is all about, it's just knowing and coming to the recognition that you're not from planet Earth. And beyond that, it's not just like remembering that you're not from planet Earth. It's also remembering that you're here to fulfill a certain role, okay? Like a mission. Often we use that word, but it's more than just a mission. It's because even that we can get attached to. It's really just being filled with a sense of purpose, that you're here to be of service to the world at large, okay? And that might seem like a really big task to fulfill, but starseeds end up awakening to how they naturally fulfill that by just awakening themselves, okay? So the process of a starseed awakening is very precious. It's a beautiful thing that happens for the greater good of all humanity. Because when a starseed awakens, that's all the codes within the DNA within that person become alive, and they start influencing, right? Those codes within the DNA, the knowing within the DNA starts influencing those thought bubbles. Remember, I was talking about the fields of consciousness that a lot of the fear is producing. Well, the codes within starseeds is just pure love. So they start generating a counter effect in order to bring balance into the world. So starseeds, they end up coming into a recognition usually pretty quickly through their spiritual awakening process of past lives connected to usually very ancient times on Earth and times lived in other galaxies, on other planets. They might have a recognition that they are part of galactic groups and councils. They're part of the angelic races, which is what I became aware of very quickly when I started traveling the world, and I lived in Bali for about 5 years. I met just amazing teachers and psychics who ended up helping me open my own psychic abilities again. And so once I started to become aware of what I'm truly here to do and how I do it, and I have this gift of healing within me, I have like loads of compassion I was just born with, and I never knew that, oh, that's compassion, that's what you call that. This like endless infinite care and love and understanding that I have, and patience, that's compassion. Oh, wow, okay. Like it was so cool to be initiated by great thinkers and masters, because they finally gave me that framework I was looking for. I was so just born out of away from that that way of thinking and seeing in myself that I couldn't see myself. I had no sense of self. I had no real knowing of who I actually am as the soul, until another soul saw me. And that's why we need each other. That's why we do need guides. I don't think we need gurus or teachers. I really feel like that era is done. But we do need each other to hold space for each other, a compassionate space, so others can awaken to their own knowing, their own recognition of themselves.
Yeah.
It's so important, because it's like you said, knowledge isn't the power. People think knowledge is power. It's knowing. It's wisdom. Wisdom is
knowledge
very different.
is just regurgitated amongst this earth plane. It's introduced into this plane, and it's regurgitated and reshaped, and that's it. And people think the more they can remember, the more knowledgeable they are, or how they can access certain truths or percentages of this or that or whatever, but
Yeah.
so it can be very intimidating for starseeds to awaken to a purpose, I've noticed, I built a business to 1,400 people, and I did it on one question, and that was, what's your purpose in life? And I didn't even know what I was doing at the time, because I knew I had a purpose. This was way before my awakening. But when I asked people what their purpose in life was, it stimulated them at a whole nother level. It was a really deep question. It was really a big spiritual question without talking about spirituality or anything. And I didn't even know how awesome that was at the time. I just knew that I would get lights to go off in people's head, and I got a big charge of that. And I felt I was of service when I was doing that. And I can feel the benevolence supporting my intention of being of service, And somebody once said, the truth will set you free. Okay. And what's really interesting is, and we're not going to go down this path, but there's enough dark stuff going on the planet that'll curl people's toes. You know what I mean? That they would just literally just freak. But the power of knowing that truth of what actually is going on in this earth plane forces people to ask deeper questions like, why am I here? And then it forces them to wake up to greater aspects of their own being and meaning and purpose for why they exist, which leads them to greater inspiration to have a mission and and to realize who they truly are, and we're coming to that point right now. And I got to tell you, even in the last 7 weeks, when people are in fear, they don't have time to think about purpose or mission. They're just trying to survive. Like that cat, you see that cat hanging on the side of the cliff with one paw. When you're in that state, you're thinking about your next meal. You're thinking about the rent payment. You don't have time to think about how can I be of service, to other people. And that was a culmination for everything I was saying, Jamie, and it just escaped me.
Happens to the best of us.
Well, no, here it is. And the green foliage behind you is what reminded me, and that's this. The last 7 weeks of being in quarantine, it's really forced me to go deeper and to really start to realize the value of going deeper. And what I want people to get is they're no separate than nature. There's no difference. When you can feel that right here, and you can feel the same processes that go on in the plants behind you are running the processes within our body, that we're not separate. And that's a powerful thing for somebody to come into that realization, because out of that realization, compassion we're talking about compassion. You started it. But compassion, it's very easy to come out of that place because it's the very nature of why we exist. It's like having that patience for those that are going through their awakening process right now. And I know you embody this. And that's one of the reasons I stuck up for you that one day is because you do have a lot of compassion. You're incredibly gentle. And we do have to have compassion for those individuals that are going through the same process we went through. Because at one time we were in the dark, and there's always somebody that we can reach up to and grab our hand while we're reaching down and pulling somebody up, right?
Yes.
So anyway, I went on a little rant. I'm sorry.
Ron, I want to jump in here because you're inspiring me with your little rant. See, there's a purpose for everything, you see? and it's human beings. This is why I love the human race. Okay, I'm going to sound like I'm talking like I'm an alien. Well, I am, but
go for it. We both are.
Yes, we're all stardust. Human beings have within them an infinite well of compassion. Okay, and I can't wait for the day when humanity wakes up to that superpower, because it is a superpower and it will change this world. If everyone could realize that and experience it for themselves, that deep inner well of compassion that exists in every single soul in a human being, and just trust in it, allow it, let it become more present in their life, our world is going to change to one that is in resonance with the heart of every single sentient being. Okay, it's going to become a world that will not do harm to each other anymore. It's going to become a world of absolute peace and harmony. That is the key. Compassion is the key. And we all are holders of it. Okay, this is not a special thing. This is not for just star seeds. Okay, it's not just for the bodhisattvas who have come back and incarnated. Okay, it's in everyone. And I love the time that we're in right now, even though we're forced to be in our homes, you know, in this quarantine, in this post-COVID-19 world, because it's helping people to connect with themselves on that level. And we need to do that more. And yes, Mother Nature, Earth Mother, she wants this. She is helping us the most. She is the master healer, okay? And she is helping us to realize this and awaken those codes of liberation, because without compassion, you don't get to that liberated state that I'm talking about. You know, compassion is a big key.
Well, I can feel that big time. You know, our soul embodies the intelligence of the cosmos and nature. There's no separate. Every one of us, like you said, our soul is a part of that. And I use this as here's my cup. Let's say the ocean is the universe, or everything's connected in the ocean. There's nothing separate in the ocean. By virtue, so if I take my cup and I dip it into the ocean and I pull my cup out, now that ocean that was infinite intelligence now thinks it's the cup. And we think we're the cup. And we think we're completely separate from it all. And we'd have to remember that we're the ocean. You know what I mean? We're all that is there. And that explanation was explained to me in some book. I don't know if it was Autobiography of a Yogi or someplace, but it's just the truth. You know, it's just the truth. Before we start to bring things to a close, one of the things I know you want to speak about is Omnicore. So there's a few things I'd like you to speak about, all your services you provide, okay, how people can get in touch with you, but I want you to talk about Omnicore and the significance of Omnicore so people can understand, okay?
Sure.
Well,
okay.
and there's something else you would like to say before that, please go right ahead. You know, if there was something.
Oh, thank you, Ron.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good. It feels really wonderful. And what I've created is a healing modality based on my 8+ years of being in professional practice, as well as being trained in 7 different types of energy healing and sound healing, and learning what exactly works and what doesn't work for the people that tend to see me. Okay, so the people that tend to see me are stuck in some way. Okay, they've got some kind of emotional trouble with regulating their emotions, or a tension that is hard to resolve. So frequency healing, you know, what I teach is all about your frequency, right? You can't create anything with source energy, right? The source energy that's already within you. You can't really create anything with that superpower, unless you are aware of your own frequency and what you're frequenting, meaning what you're choosing to frequent, right? And show up. And that's why we talk about response and responsibility. It's huge, absolutely huge. So I teach people how to create from that place, you know, and we activate that liberation gene. We take them through the process all the way to the edge where they think, oh no, I can't go any further. And we go, no, you can. And bring them to that place where they can experience and embody the freedom right? The frequency of freedom and happiness within themselves, so they can create from that place of connection. And when you start creating from that place of connection, wow, it's just effortless flow. You know, things just come to you, divine synchronicities every single day. And once you're empowered with the tools and the awareness, right, the education of what energy is, then you get to be in command of that for the rest of your life. No longer are you a victim to circumstances. So it's pretty cool. You know, frequency healing allows us to really dig deep in that regard and heal, actually bring healing to our triggers, bring healing to the wounds that we might not even be aware of. As a psychic intuitive, I'm both telepathic and empathic, so I'm really good at kind of seeing through people and calling out the stuff that's hiding, that's really sitting in the way of their greatest liberation. So that's the joy. It's just an absolute honor and joy that I get to facilitate processes like that for people, because it fast tracks them, you know, it fast tracks their growth. And I get to see what people create from that. It's really cool, including, you know, the creation of cures for their diseases, or cures for their financial problems, or, you know what I mean? The list is endless. You can create anything in your life. So that's what frequency healing is. An omnicore. Omnicore is a device, a sacred geometry device that my beloved Seth creates. And we went into a partnership together after he learned about, you know, what it is I teach in these retreats and in these sessions. And he goes, oh my God, this is Omnicore. This is what you teach is Omnicore. Like this mystic science and art and philosophy is all about, you know, this one sacred shape that governs all of life. And if you look at the Omnicore, which I had one here, I'd show it, put it on the screen. It's the sacred shape of an atom. That's the Genesis crystal. And in the middle, you'll see like these Tesla-like coils, okay? And these Tesla-like coils come from Dr. Walter Russell, who is often called the grandfather of New Age science. And man, he really came out with a lot of incredible information that really makes, you know, it brings it all here, you know, to your intellectual awareness, and makes what mysticism and energy makes sense from a very scientific, concrete level. So that's Dr. Walter Russell. And we combine the Genesis crystal with his coil to create a tool that helps people plug in to that state, an altered state of consciousness that allows them to create their life with ease, okay? Once you learn your frequency, what I say, your master frequency, and let's say your master frequency is love, or your master frequency is peace, it's always going to be something positive. Once you learn what that is, with the Omnicore, you can then program, you know, you can instill your master frequency into it, because there's a crystal inside, and then it amplifies your frequency. So in today's world, we've got serious concerns for star seeds and those who are waking up, okay? And those currents have to deal with, how do I sustain my frequency? How do I keep a clean and happy vibe when things in the world are just falling apart and there's chaos, right? How do I center myself in all of this? Well, you know, meditation sometimes isn't enough. You know, sound healing is incredibly impactful, but oftentimes that's not enough. And what I do personally is I do all of it. You know, I've got all my practices, and this is exactly what I teach, the liberation practices. And that helps me as an advanced awakening soul really stay grounded and centered here on earth as changes happen, okay? And now with the implementation of 5G millimeter waves, you know, some of us are really, really sensitive to that, really sensitive to these EMF technologies. And so what Omnicore does, it helps give us an extra level of protection from these harmful EMFs and radiation waves that are affecting a lot of sensitive people such as myself. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I would do without having this piece of technology in my life. I'm certainly not dependent on it, because I recognize that this geometry is actually what's inside of me. So what I'm doing is I'm connecting with what's inside of me, and I'm amplifying it and that this is what the tool helps us do. It connects with each person's master frequency, and it helps to amplify that. So your frequency becomes way more stronger. So you could go out into the world and live more freely. You don't have to be so restricted, right?
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Do you want to grab one and show people if you have?
Okay. Give me a moment. I'm going to grab one.
Take your time.
Putting my headphones back on here. Okay, so this is our small version. I'm going to take the money and the credit cards out of the Omnicore. I'm going to explain why we do that.
Well, I understand. I get it. I got it right away. Good.
Okay, you got it. So for those who can see my screen here, this is a mini Omnicore to travel size, and we sell out of these so quickly. It's amazing. I'm surprised that we even have one right now in the house. But we just shipped off a whole bunch, and we do make bigger sizes. But this is the classic model. It's copper.
Beautiful.
And you see the crystal core that's in the middle?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is the thing that amplifies, or it keeps it. It stores your intention, or it stores your frequency. It stores your prayers. I mean, whatever it is you want to program it with. And these coils, this is what amplifies that energy. So what we like to do, because Seth and I have financial goals, so we like to put money inside the Omnicore, and I'm telling you, it works. It works. It's like we put it in there because we have big dreams, and we do want a house of our own. So we're making that intention to save up enough for a home, and we put it there, and we just let it sit in our space, and it's just amplifying that energy.
Beautiful. Really, really beautiful. Mm-hmm. So what kind of events do you have any special events coming up? Your one-on-one, you want to explain that a little bit, please?
Well, I've had to postpone my retreats ever since the crisis hit. Mm-hmm. So now I'm focused primarily on Love Rising Academy, and that's where I do private coaching and healing sessions for my clients.
Okay.
And clients and students, the ones who are committed to a full year study with me, mm-hmm. And they can study on their own pace, because I have pre-recorded classes mm-hmm. that they access, and then we do one-on-one sessions, and then group healings together, which are really, really amazing. They're quite impactful.
And they can find those at?
They can find that on my website.
Love
mm-hmm.
Rising. What is the URL?
loverising.earth.
Okay, loverising.earth. Beautiful, yes. Beautiful. Jamie, well, first of all, it was great connecting with you like this. Really, really loved exchanging energy and getting your voice amplified, out there. And because there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done.
Indeed.
Any final words you'd like to leave anybody that's listening?
We can do this. That's what wants to come through right now. It's words of encouragement. We can do this. Remember the multidimensional angel, star being, fairy that you are deep down inside. We are a mix of all of this, a hybrid of all of this. Of all these DNA, okay, it's all within us, and we don't have to look outside of ourselves anymore for any solution, for any answer. The power is within, and all that humanity needs to do is remember that. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I really, really, really appreciate this opportunity to connect, not only with you, Ron, but also your audience, and really thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Awesome. My pleasure. My pleasure and my honor. So thank you, Jamie Liu. This has been the Journey to Awakening podcast, and I'm Ron Ario. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the other side.